Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my absolute pleasure to have as my guest R.J. Fisher. R.J. Fisher works within the prison system as a writer, qualitative researcher, and motivational speaker. Her true crime novel, The Girl That Got Out, speaks across generations and is spoken highly of in the psychological community. She writes true crime and trauma recovery, focusing on the why behind human behavior and the power of change. RJ holds a degree in criminal justice from Penn State, studied urban ministry at Moody Bible Institute, and has worked in the fields of urban solutions, archaeology, and mental health. RJ resides in the countryside with her boyfriend, their 6 children, and a plethora of pets. And with that, RJ, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. I've been looking forward to speaking with you for some time now.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I told you before we started recording, I was exciting because I got to say the word plethora.
Yes,
And
you killed it.
I killed it. Well, thank you.
Killed it.
And just for our audience who may not understand the true meaning of the word, plethora is more than a lot. Am I correct?
Yes, it is more than a lot.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of I have a plethora of pets. I have a plethora of children. The only thing that probably wouldn't go over well if I told my wife I had a plethora of girlfriends. So
definitely not.
Yeah, I could try to tell her I had a lot of girlfriends, but that probably wouldn't work either. So
I feel like plethora is scarier than a lot.
it just sounds so elegant.
It does, yes.
It's just a great word. So thank you for that. This is a landmark day in the history of this podcast. In the 2.5 years I've had this podcast, I've never once used that word. So thank you for that. And who says we don't have a sense of humor on the Teaching Journeys podcast?
Exactly. Humor it gets you through life, really. That's my coping mechanism is humor, so that works.
Absolutely. And humor has gotten me through a lot of dark days. It's gotten me through a lot of stuff. And the humor is more directed at myself or just general or just making fun of myself or just busting chops on somebody that I have a good relationship with, but never at the expense of the self-esteem of anybody.
Right. Correct.
So, but anyway, I have some questions. And so hopefully you got some answers for me.
I'll try my best.
I'm sure you will. So my first question for you is please tell our listeners about the experience that has shaped your life path and your life passions today.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start at the beginning when I was a knee-high to a grasshopper, but I'll shorten that story. I was homeschooled. I grew up out in the middle of the woods. And I loved philosophy, religion, theology. I did a lot of reading as a child. And we traveled, we did things. So I did socialize, but I didn't have the experience of being around people all the time. I was pretty much by myself growing up. So I had me and my books. And so I studied humanity and I studied psychology. I had the experience of having a family member with some mental health issues. And growing up and as I got older and I got to college age, I really became obsessed with trying to solve the issue of the mind. I knew the things that person was doing, they didn't want to be doing, but they didn't know they were doing it. You know, they had a disconnect in their brain. And so I just really, that started at a young age, I guess, that seed for the human mind. Just that seed to change lives and to direct people in a better direction, like direct people in the lives that they wanted to live. with that being said, I went off into my journey. I went to college, and then I thought, I'm getting married, get settled down, have a family. So I got married, I had a son, and everything was, going pretty well. And then it wasn't. Um, so after a few years, our marriage, we split up, we got divorced, and I was just kind of lost because, as I said, I had studied a lot of religion and philosophy, and I always thought I had the answers. At 18, you couldn't tell me nothing. I had the answers for everybody. Didn't matter what age you were, I I could tell you what to do and how to fix your life. And here I was, a divorcee, living on my own with a 5-year-old son, and I didn't have the answer. So, the script was flipped on me. So I was dating this young man. I had met him at the library, and he seemed very interested in what I liked, the things that I liked. He was also very intellectual, and I really appreciated that. So we kind of dated lightly, gently, and then he would start flipping out. And he just had this temper that would just come out of nowhere, and it was weird. Like, I would take the wrong turn on a road, and all of a sudden, he would just be flipping out and screaming at me, and why did I take the wrong turn? And it just kinda surprised me, and at that time, I was in my young 20s, I was very headstrong, and I was like, "I don't have time for this, I'm not dealing with your temper, I gotta figure out my own life." So, I broke up with him, and about 6 months after I broke up with him, I did not hear from him. And then one morning, I took my son to the school bus. It was the beginning of the school year. And I came back, and he was at the bottom of my apartment steps. And it surprised me, but I didn't think anything of it. And he said, I just really want to talk to you. We just need to have a heart to heart. And I said, sure, come on in. And we went in and we had breakfast and we just chatted and we talked about where he had been for the last 6 months and just kind of just a friendly, calm conversation. But I had to go to work, and I told him, "It's been great catching up with you, but I need to go to work." And he said, "No, you're not going anywhere." And I was like, funny, haha. It would be great to take the day off work and just hang out, but no, like, I really gotta go to work. Well, he had brought a backpack with him, and he pulled out of the backpack a can of mace and a knife. And he was like, "No, for real, you're not going anywhere." So I'm thinking, like, he's joking. Like, there's no way he's actually gonna use that. Maybe he's just trying to scare me into staying, in some weird way. But he was between me and the door out. So I kinda laughed, as we said, that sense of humor. And I was like, "Oh, haha, very funny." And I'm just gearing up, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts in 1 second. All this is going on in 1 second. My brain's just like, "What do you do? What do you do?" It's like, "Get to the door." So I was like, "Haha," and I ran, and I get to the door, but he caught me halfway out the door. I had my cell phone in my hand, and it got flung outside. I started flailing, and he was dragging me back in, and I had a death grip on the door trying to get out and screaming, and he sprayed me with the mace. And I kept on fighting for the door, and then he was just punching me in the head with the handle of the knife blade, and I kept on fighting for the door, and, finally, he held the knife to my throat, and he said and he didn't say anything. He held the knife to my throat, and I quit. I quit fighting. So he dragged me back in the house and sat me down on the couch and zip tied my hands behind my back and my ankles together. He had gotten cut on his cheek while we were fighting for the door, so he went into the bathroom to clean up his face. And I just sat there on the couch, crying, burning. I don't know if you've ever been sprayed with mace, hopefully not.
No.
But it burns, and it's not fun. And I just sat there not able to move my hands or my legs, and I'm staring. I had there was like a little window up in the one room, and I'm looking out, and there's just a clear blue sky up there. It was like a fall day, a beautiful morning, and I can hear cars outside the apartment driving by, and there's people right there. You knew there was people walking dogs, and you're in here, and in my mind, I'm about to die because he's serious.
Mhm.
And all I could think was, I'm that girl in the news stories that you hear about where he goes crazy and kills her and then kills himself and burns the house down. And I'm just thinking, how can that be me? Like, that's not, once again, this is not how my life's supposed to go. This is not the story, you know? So I was just desperately praying in my mind, and I was like, God, you have to get me out of here. You have to get me out of here. And I just felt so distinctly in my mind that he said, I'm not promising to get you out of here, but I am promising to be with you through all of it. And that gave me just this crazy peace in my mind that I wasn't alone. And I calmed down, and I was able to stop crying, and I started to just gather my thoughts, you know, and I thought, okay, we just got to find out what the game plan is. We got to see what's going to happen. So he came back out of the bathroom and he sat down and we had a conversation. And I'll tell you, you want to talk about humor, we can laugh about it now, but it is one of the oddest conversations to be sitting there all tied up and beat up and talking about what's going to happen for the next couple of days. Like, it was such a surreal conversation. But he said that he had tried to kill himself, tried to overdose on pills about a month before this. And he said he had died and they brought him back. And when he had died, he saw nothing. And he said he thought there's nothing to this life. There's no reason or purpose or anything. And that because I had hurt him and I was evil, that he was going to kill me, and then he was going to kill himself. And then he had a bomb, which he pulled out of his backpack for the police, because he figured by the time we had been there for a while, somebody would come looking for me. He said if anybody knocked on the door during the time that we were there, I would die instantly. He was going to kill me without any question. Which, when something terrible happens, is terrible. But there are things that happen through it that you can't explain. My mother did come we were in there for 6 hours, and my mother did come pick up my son off of the school bus because it was like a half a day. She saw my car there and she knew I was supposed to be at work. And she said, for some reason, I just didn't stop. I thought maybe she was sleeping or maybe she was resting. My neighbor said that her dog had been flipping out whenever I was screaming. She said her dog was barking and barking and barking, and she was going to come over and check on things. And she, for whatever reason, thought, no, I'm just going to stay here. So on either of those instances, I would have been instantly dead. So there was a blanket over the situation. So we talked. He wanted to pretend like we were boyfriend, girlfriend for 3 days. He had chosen the date 10, 11, 12 to be a significant date. That was when he did it. And after 3 days, he said he was going to torture me for 3 days. And then after that, he would end it. So in light of that, he made some advances. And while he was making advances, I was able to convince him to undo my hands and my feet. So I got free. And I took a shower and got cleaned up. And I said, can I play the piano for you? Because I've always heard that with situations with mental illness, music is just super therapeutic. And I knew that he loved to hear me play. He used to always listen to me play and sing. So he agreed to it. And I played, and I just played everything that I could to just calm him down. And he listened for a while, and then he became angry. And the whole entire time we were in there, he was almost 2 different people. So he would cry. He'd be crying one minute, and he'd be like, I don't want to be doing this to you. And then all of a sudden he would change, and he would be like, you deserve to die. So he was just very conflicted in his mind. I stopped playing. He told me to stop playing. He got that cold look, like his eyes changed and everything. And he said, we're going to go into phase 2. And he said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get your cell phone, and I'm going to go through it and see all your contacts. Now, when we had our initial conversation, he told me he knew where all my family members were. He knew their addresses. He said, so in the event that I escaped, he was going after them. So he zip tied me again to the radiator, and he went out and got my cell phone, and he came back in. And I'm thinking, once again, we're going backwards. I kind of gotten excited with the whole being free again and being able to play music. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, wait, like the hope started fading again. He said that he was going to have me call my son and tell him goodbye. And so he was sitting there going through the pictures, and the kitchen is where the door is. So just give you a little bit of a layout. The door is in the kitchen, and then you go from the kitchen into the living room. So we were in the living room, and it came to mind, and I was like, hey, if we're going to be here for a while, would you mind if I just clean the kitchen up? Because there was blood splatter everywhere. And I said, I don't really want to stay here for a couple of days without being a mess. And he kind of snickered at first, but then he was like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, I can still see you from here. And I was like, okay. So he let me go. So I was in the kitchen and I'm cleaning and scrubbing, and I would tap the door handle. Like I would kind of get close to it and tap it. And he would look, to see what I was doing. And I wasn't doing anything, just scrubbing away. So he got to one point and I heard him say, oh, I found a good picture. And as soon as I heard that, I knew he's distracted. I grabbed the door handles, flung the lock, ran out that door fast as I could. I ran across the street. There's a little country store there. And I ran in and I told the boy behind the counter, I was like, you have to call 911. This man's trying to kill me. He's chasing me. They had no idea what to do with me because it was a small town. Like nothing like this ever happens. They hid me in the back closet and they called the police. They had the helicopters, the bomb squad, everybody came out. He was gone. He had left. He had thrown the bomb into the hedges down the street, and then he had left. So I went to a women's shelter for the evening. My son and I, we went into hiding, and they notified me about 4:30 in the morning that night that they found him and they had taken him in. He was muttering. He was pretending like he couldn't talk. We don't know if he was pretending or not pretending. Nobody was really sure. But they said that he knew what room his backpack was in, and he knew the codes for some of the doors. Like he was paying attention to everything they were doing. But if they asked him anything, he would just start babbling. So that is the day that my life just completely got flipped upside down. Just everything, my core, my whole everything just got shook.
Yeah, as I was listening, there was just like, it's just like, how does it go from, I'm pissed because you missed a turn to in 3 days, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's in retrospect, and I know you had mentioned his anger outburst when you would either make a wrong turn or do something else. And I know you had some time to obviously think about the event that
Yeah.
occurred. In retrospect, did you see anything else in his behavior that could have been a red flag that maybe have helped the audience who was listening, was trying to be proactive in terms of leaving a difficult or dangerous relationship?
Yeah. In hindsight, definitely looking back, like I said, he just had the explosive anger. He had a very broken past. He had had a rough childhood, and not everybody with rough childhoods turn out mentally unsound, but he had definitely had some kind of break from reality that was in there. It was just kind of festering in there. He was extremely obsessive,
Yeah.
like severely obsessive. He always had to know where I was going and who I was with. And when I did break up with him, like, we kind of, not traditionally, but people don't just break up. You break up and then you have like a couple weeks of just back and forth, and then it's broke. And during those couple weeks, he would call my phone 100 times in a minute. He would show up at the grocery store where I was shopping and just make a scene. Just extremely obsessive. He was convinced that, I had a secret life or I couldn't just possibly be upset with him. It was something else. He was manipulative to other people, not necessarily with me, but I knew that he lied to people. He was shady. And I definitely think all those things put together. Also, the suicide attempt. I think the suicide attempt honestly just really broke. Like it was a storm. It was a storm that was just kind of hanging there and festering, and it just broke on me.
Yeah, what you described with him, as I was listening, there was mood swings,
Yeah.
was paranoia. There probably sounded like some psychotic breaks with reality.
Yeah.
Again, without having talked with him or knowing him, just those things would have smacked of mental instability.
Now,
And
one point, sorry, I didn't mean to. One point when we were dating, he had a snap out, but we were in public, so he didn't quite yell, but he would just say things under his breath, be real mean. And I had a man pull me aside. He was a retired psychologist. And he said, I don't know you and I don't know him, but I'm telling you that one day that man's going to try to kill you. And of course, I thought, well, that's extreme.
Yeah.
That's dramatic. He just has a temper. He's in a bad mood. But there were definitely behaviors
Mhm.
that put up red flags.
Is certainly controlling, which is a typical sign of a perpetrator of abuse.
Yeah.
You could throw some personality disorder traits in there, whether it's narcissism, paranoid, whether it's antisocial. There's a whole mix going on. And again, you said he came from a broken home. It wouldn't surprise me if he was a victim of abuse. He was a victim of neglect. He was a victim of abandonment. And when you broke up with him, all of that just tapped into all of that. And
Yeah.
he just snapped.
Yep. Yeah. I really think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I'm just glad you got out of there, and I'm glad you were not I'm just glad you were not the subject of an episode on Forensic Files too.
Oh my goodness, absolutely, yes. I feel so incredibly blessed to not to have gotten out for real, just to be alive.
Let me ask you another question, if I may. What was the impact of you short-term and long-term in the aftermath of the hostage situation that you were a part of? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Short term for I'd say the first 2 weeks maybe afterwards. I thought pretty highly of myself. I was like on this I was on an adrenaline high is what I was. I was just so amped up from the adrenaline of the whole day and escaping. I went back that night to my apartment and swept up the glass and cleaned up because I told myself, you are not going to let this kick your butt. Like you're going to face this, you're going to deal with it. I went right back to work. And, I just thought I'm going to carry on with my life. And it being a small town, everybody was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And you're telling the story. And it was a thing for a minute. But after about 2 weeks, the adrenaline went away and I completely crashed. Just completely 1,000,000% fell apart. I could not sleep at night at all. I was up all night. I had nightmares. Like any time that I could drift off, I constantly had nightmares. I never had a good sleep. Most of the time I would go out and sleep in my car and I would lock the door. I felt safe in there and I started drinking. I was drinking a lot to try to sleep.
Yeah.
And when I would do that, if I was around people or, my friends or I had a brother that I would call, he had done some tours in Iraq. So he understood what level I was going through. So I could call him at 2:00 in the morning and he would answer and he would just be like, you're okay. You're okay. And, and I was just like, I'm not okay. But why was the big question. That was it haunted me. It just absolutely haunted me was how could somebody hate me so much that they want to kill me? That just absolutely devastated me. So I wrestled with that and I got in with the wrong crowd of people. Because everything in my life, like I said, I had done all the studying and I knew all the answers and I knew I was going through trauma. I was like, I know that you're traumatized and yeah, I know all this, but I couldn't stop my mind from shutting off. I couldn't stop my mind from just freaking out. Like I would go to a grocery store that I didn't know and just the experience of not knowing where the groceries were, I would just leave. I would just start crying and leave because I couldn't take that little bit of stress. Um, I went to college in Chicago at Moody Bible Institute. I loved the city. When I would walk through the city after that, I would panic. I felt like people were behind me. I felt like somebody was going to jump out. And it wasn't that I was thinking about the event, but my mind was just stuck in fight or flight. It was stuck there. It was not coming out.
Yeah, and obviously you became increasingly hyper vigilant too, because
Extreme. Yeah.
safety was a big concern for you, and you were
Yeah.
going to do whatever you needed to do to stay safe.
Yes.
The other thing, before I forget too, I always look at a silver lining through every dark cloud. And when you were talking about praying to God and feeling his presence there, and also that permeating to your mother, to those people, other people that you cared about,
Yeah.
I look at that as to, just behold the magic of the universe, and behold that there are just some things that we know to be true, but don't have a scientific explanation for it. But it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not true. So you certainly had a divine presence with you that I think
Yeah.
that was something that was undeniable, and is another part of a story that I'm glad you told.
I put it in at the end of my book, the night before it happened. I have a habit of I would read scripture and then I would just journal about it. And then I would read a book. I love to read. And the scripture that I read that night before said, "Do not be afraid. When they come against you, I will build you as a fortress and you will be safe." And that was the exact night before. And I just didn't think anything of it. I wrote it down, I journaled it, so that months afterwards, I looked back at my journal and I was like, "Oh my goodness." Like, so just small things like that, just tiny little, I did crash after about a year. Everything kind of came to a head. I couldn't cope, and I had parked my car on a hilltop, and I just said I just wanted to go to sleep. It wasn't that I really didn't want to live anymore. Obviously, I was so excited to be alive, but I couldn't go through the pain. I just
Yeah.
didn't. I wanted to escape the pain. I wanted to get away from it. I didn't want to feel the burden and the pain anymore. So I stuffed my tailpipe and I went to sleep. And when I woke up, it was all clear. There was nothing there. I don't even know what happened here. And I don't even know if that would have even worked at that moment, but that was my lowest of the low moment.
Mhm.
I just, and I realized then, I was like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You were given this blessing. You were given the second chance. You were so excited about it. Get up, get up
Yep.
and stop. Like, you just got to take a small step. You just got to turn your car on and drive home
Yep.
and go from there." And,
Yeah, and sometimes when I think we reach our darkest moments, the lowest of low, that's the catalyst for us to rise back up
yeah,
and say, okay, I want to live again.
yeah,
And
yep,
even as a child, and I was listening to your adult career path, really mimicked what you did as a child. I mean, you read a lot of
yeah.
different books, philosophy, psychology, religion. I mean, you could be a bioethicist with that type of a
That's a
background.
big word.
Yeah,
You
bigger
thought
than
you thought plethora was big.
yeah, but I think there's a plethora of bioethicists around too. Because I'm pretty sure. Um, I think at about 90% of hospitals or more in the United States, they have a bioethicist either as a consultant or on staff.
Okay,
So
I'll have to check into that.
yeah, do that. Let me know if it's just a plethora or just
Just
a
a
lot of them.
plethora of. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, where the hell was I now?
I don't even know.
But
My childhood and
yeah, so,
where my life has gone.
yeah,
Yes.
there we go. There we go. But I mean, there's one of my favorite book on the afterlife of Billy Fingers. One of his greatest teachings that I quote in quote is all roads lead to the present moment, which
Yeah,
means that
absolutely.
everything we did in our past, whether it be as a child, whether it be as an adult, prepared us for the ultimate moment in the present and shapes our future. And
Yes.
I'm glad that you decided to take a look at that, especially look at that last scripture entry that you read,
Yeah.
because you're looking at the past and saying, okay, I see how this all connects now.
Yeah.
Um, and we have to look at our past to understand the present and craft our future.
Absolutely. 100%. You read in my little bio there, I love archaeology, and I worked in Pennsylvania archaeology on different sites. And I feel like it's so important for humankind to just
Hmm.
look at the past. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how, we become better and just have better society, is if we can look at the past. We forget all the time. Like,
Yep.
people have been doing this for a long time, and we can learn from all of that. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that too. I mean, mindfulness is a great tool to help us navigate the present, but the
Yeah.
present isn't the only part of our existence that we need to be concerned with. It's how did our past shape that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, I know you mentioned your book, The Girl That Got Out.
Yes.
Tell our audience what the book's about and what you want readers to take away from it.
So it is a reasonable book. It does not have a plethora of pages. But it's really just a raw book from my heart, that the first half just tells the story. It tells, what happened, and it tells about the year afterwards, the trial. There was a trial, and just everything I went through with that process. And then the second half of the book, I broke into 12 points that I felt were things that helped me get through the trauma and that helped me to be where I'm at today. Just practical tools, just things that people can use, that can implement if they've gone through something and the world's just swirling around them. They can, read it and be like, you know what, I need to try this. One of them is like leaving, get away from the area, go see some other part of the world. So something just practical like that. Take a day trip, it will help you. It will help you heal. So that's the book in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that is quite a nutshell. And I can imagine at times that had to be very painful for you writing it, particularly as you were
Yes.
recreating the event.
Yes, I had, multiple people ask me to write the story, about a couple years after it happened, and it's been 13 years, and I finally just wrote it, because every time I would try to sit to write it, I couldn't. I would start having panic attacks again, and not till I learned how to manage those was I able to just sit down and write it. That was also a super therapeutic thing for me to do, was to write it down, to write the whole story out, and to talk about it has been. We're entering the season because it happened in October. So this is the first year since I've come out with the book and that I've been speaking on podcasts. This is the first year that I'm hitting that season. And I'm very curious to see how it affects me this year, to see if it's lesser, if I'm more healed, because every fall is a little bit of it's a little bump.
Well, yeah, it is because whenever there's a significant event in our lives, whether it's a death, whether it's a hostage situation, whether you're inches from within your life, from your life,
Yeah.
having your life taken away from you, there's always going to be that raw emotion that comes up the days leading up to it because we're reliving that event. And I think over time, I can speak from my own experience with traumatic loss and life-altering events. That becomes, I think, more of a part of our story. We learn more from it. And in
Yeah.
some way, in some strange way, we've made friends with it and are grateful
Yes.
for what that has to teach us more about ourselves.
Yeah.
So the worst event in our lives can be the event that's most in service to us.
Absolutely. It has given me such a door into the lives of the people around me, the people that I work with every single day. It just gives me a bridge. It kind of gives me the golden pass for real, because I understand, like, I can speak to brokenness, I can speak to pain. I
Yeah.
know I've been there. And so it's just it's my door into the lives of others that are hurting, and it's pretty cool.
Yep. And all of us are broken to an extent. If you live long
Yeah,
enough, you're going to be broken by tragedy.
right.
But paraphrasing Ernest Hemingway, it's, in the broken places, there's healing. And I'm paraphrasing that,
Yeah,
we get stronger at the broken places.
yeah,
And, but that's, it doesn't happen through using mirrors. It happens because you're using a plethora of resources to help you,
yeah,
to help you to get to that point. Speaking of which, yeah, I know you've got 12 specific resources and tools and
yeah,
techniques in your book, but personally, what helped you get from a victim of trauma to a trauma thriver and survivor? What were some of the things? I know you mentioned writing. You
yeah.
mentioned talking about it. Was there any other
Yeah.
thing that you found particularly helpful for you that helped you get from trauma victim to trauma survivor?
Yeah. Recognizing my triggers, I would say, is probably the biggest thing for me. It still is. I still use that. Like I said, 13 years later, I'm still using that. But, I just recently picked up the habit of whitewater kayaking, the sport of this. So you have to learn how to roll underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to flip upside down underwater and not panic and get yourself back up. So I've been practicing doing that. And when something traumatic happens to you, that is it's really what it feels like. It feels like you flipped upside down, you're in water and just flailing. You're flailing, you're disoriented. After trauma, you're lost. You don't know what to do with your mind, you don't know what to do with your life. Um, and then finally I realized all these things were predictable. All these going to the grocery store and not knowing where things are, I knew that was going to trigger me. Walking down the street in the city, I knew that was going to trigger me. A beautiful, clear blue sky in the fall, I knew that was going to trigger me. And once I started realizing these things are predictable, like, you already know you're going to be upset. It doesn't mean you don't go do them, but it just means that you need to be aware that you're going to be feeling nervous, you're going to be feeling anxious, and that's okay. And to have a plan to calm down. So whether you need to just stand somewhere and just breathe for a minute, take a friend with you,
Yep.
have an item with you, oftentimes I have my necklace and I'll just kind of hold it for a minute, a little grounding technique. But recognizing triggers is huge for me. And like I said, I still use it, and that kind of stops the panic attack. You'll start to feel it, but you already know. You're like, oh, I already know you're coming. So you can
Yep.
go back to where you were coming from. That helps. Like I said, this time of year, I'm already prepared. So what I'll do for these next couple months is I'm just going to not be so busy and not work so hard. And I'm going to take more time to spend with my children and more time to just relax, be in
Yep.
nature, and just
Yep.
keep my mind strong.
And it's usually the days leading up to the actual day of the event that can be more stressful and more anxiety
Yeah.
provoking than the actual day itself.
Yeah. By the time you get to the day,
Yeah.
you've already hashed through all the feelings.
Yeah, you have. And it's
It's
just
such a
like,
weird thing.
yeah, then you could just go, here, you could just take a
Yeah.
deep breath
You're
and
like,
just
oh,
say,
we're done.
we're done till another year, till another year.
Yep.
But I
Yeah.
think each year it gets softer and each year it becomes, I think, more
It does.
manageable. But I think the point you made about being proactive, recognizing your triggers, having a plan is
Yeah.
so important, particularly if there's been any type of a history of panic attack or repeated panic attacks. One of the things as a therapist that I used to really emphasize with individuals that had a history of panic attacks is safety. We develop a
Yeah.
safety plan. If they're, especially if they're in an unfamiliar building, here, if you're in the large meeting room, sit next to the nearest exit.
Yes.
If you
100%.
yeah, if you need to leave, you leave.
Yeah.
And I'll find out when you've had panic attacks before, what has helped you get out of that? What have been some
Yeah.
grounding tools that have helped you get out of that? And then communicate that to anybody who's going to listen, particularly, staff that's going to be working with that same person, that when this person
Yeah.
is leaving, it's not out of disrespect. It's a survival mechanism for them to get through a specific panic attack. These are the steps that they need to take.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crucial. It's so important because if you just keep on flailing and keep on going without any kind of plan, you're just going to keep on having panic attacks and not knowing what to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, you're working as a corrections officer in a male prison, from what I
Yeah.
understand. What have you learned about yourself as a result of that experience?
Um, it's a hard one to explain to people. But before this happened, I was interested in working in the prison system. And I actually had a Bible study for the women in the county jail at the time that this happened. I have always just kind of had a passion for people that society rejects. Once again, like I said, I'm so fascinated with the mind and how the mind works. And oftentimes, some people do absolutely terrible things and they mean to do absolutely terrible things. And that's just what they
Mm.
do. But a lot of people just grew up in environments where they it's just what you did. And it was just a thing. And they don't know the options and they don't know, or they have mental health issues. There's just so many things. So I had looked into being a chaplain at the prison, and I talked to the chaplain, and he was like, well, there's nothing available right now. He's like, but if you just want to be a prison guard, get your foot in the door, then you'll be here. And I was like, okay, we'll give this a try. And here I am. I still am. I have learned that I'm a lot stronger than I gave myself credit for sure. I learned how to speak to people, how to handle people. And it took one of my favorite questions in the world is what makes a monster a monster? And if you ask people to say, oh, describe a monster to me, and they say, oh, the teeth and the hair and the whatever, and then you'd be like, why does that make it a monster? So working in the prison system has really changed my fear, because I realize that he is not this looming presence that's coming to destroy everything, but he's a person, and it humanized it. It humanized my fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that I still don't have concerns, and I'm not saying that things can't still happen, but I know how to handle them. I know how to observe my surroundings. It's kind of been a blessing to be in that environment because of the fight and flight thing that I was stuck in at work. That's normal.
Yeah.
Like, you are always trying to be observant and paying attention. And so it feels very natural to me to just always be watching.
Well, and the other thing too, not only, did you confront, your worst nightmare, but the other thing is that you're providing a different perspective for individuals who are very similar in background to your ex-significant other. I think that's a real key piece to that. The other thing that, again, one of the, I think, gifts of the challenge that you went through on that fateful day in October is you've learned you're pretty resourceful to get out of a situation where you could have lost your life easily. That's going to serve you well in the prison environment.
Yeah, it definitely does.
You have to be proactive and resourceful, and you have to know what's going on at all times and have a physical presence. That ensures safety for you. That also ensures safety for your fellow corrections officers and other staff that are working there. So, I mean, as dark as that day was, again, there's also that silver lining in that cloud of darkness. And you came out with some serviceable skills that are going to serve you well.
Yeah. And I've had countless conversations with people with similar crimes, like you said. And I am able to bring that perspective to them, and it's just like a bridge. I feel, I'm a bridge because I have the right to speak on it, and I have the right to say things about it because I know, and I've been there, and I've been in that situation. So, it has just given me such a platform to hopefully put some seeds into some minds and to draw a different perspective to them.
The path to transformation is not always the conventional path. It's and conventional wisdom is highly overrated anyway. You do what moves you. You do what you feel you need to do to reestablish and find meaning.
Yeah.
And those people that are going to align with it will. And
Yeah.
those that don't, you can just tell them very nicely, don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out,
Right? Absolutely.
The fact is that you're doing what moves you.
Yes.
And that's all that matters. The Active Recovery Workbook. I know I saw that on your website. Now that's a resource. Am I correct that you offer individuals? Yep. Tell us a little bit about the Active Recovery Workbook, and if I downloaded it, what am I going to find?
So I'm a person that I love lists. I love lists. I like to write things out. I like to check off boxes, like I like to have in my hands what I'm going to do and all this stuff. So basically after I wrote the book, I was thinking about it, and I was like, how cool would it be for people to have a workbook, like a journal to go along with the 12 steps. So each page has interactive things, lists of ideas, and then it has things for you to write down and things for you to work through who you are and where you want to go, and to work through your triggers and to just develop a plan, really, is what it is. It's a resource to develop a plan to help you grow and help you to work through the trauma.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing more and more of the type of books that give palatable skills and coping skills and ideas and techniques. One of the things I've always said, RJ, is that insight is only as good as the skills that you have to appreciate the insight. I mean,
Yeah.
I could have insight that I need to quit smoking, but if I don't have the behavioral skills to go with it, that insight just remains, it's just empty words.
Right.
So, yeah, I've never assumed that because an individual wants to change that they know how to. We need
Yeah.
to be able to provide that foundation for them,
Yeah.
based on skills that they feel they need that will empower them, to make their way productively in the world. So,
Yeah.
one of my last questions for you today, if you could leave our listeners with one thing today, what would that be? The penultimate takeaway.
Ultimate takeaway. It's not really that profound. I guess healing takes time and it takes conscious effort. I feel like we've been saying that the whole way through. But healing does take time. And I'm a person that gets very frustrated when things take a long time. I feel like most of us are. Our patience is a virtue that people have to work on. But give grace to yourself. Take it in baby steps. Like I said, sometimes you just need to turn the car on and drive home. And that's all you got to do in that moment. Sometimes I want to take the day by leaps and bounds and I get frustrated. But for real, just getting back up after you sit down and have a good cry, just getting up. And it takes time, but with time, it does heal and it does become manageable. And you have to have a conscious plan. But it is possible. It is doable. I did it. You did it. That's what I want people to take away. That's what I want them to walk away with. That, wherever you're at in this, you will come through it. You can come through it.
Yeah, and you look at where you are now as opposed to where you were 13 years ago. You're in a great relationship. You have a great family. You have a plethora of pets. We can't we we we
Yes.
can't we
If
can't.
you had told me back then that I would be where I'm at today, I would never have believed you. Never.
Yeah, I mean,
And it is here.
yeah, I've said the same thing for different reasons. If you told me I'd be doing a podcast, teaching a dying and bereavement class, I would have, as an addictions counselor, I would have had the right to have you do a rapid drug screen test.
Right?
So, but the universe has its own plan. Sometimes much to our chagrin, but usually if we have the faith and the patience to let that unfold, we see that the plan the universe has helps us really, I think, tap into the greater versions of ourselves and contributes to our greater evolution. So my last question for you, give you a chance to promote yourself a little bit. If people want to find you, buy your book, find out more about just who RJ Fisher is and what she's doing and how they can connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's pretty simple. It's www.girlthatgotout, all one word, .com. There I have a blog there where I break down some of these topics and go in depth on them. And you can email me. My email's on there. You can get the active recovery workbook. You can find my Facebook, my Instagram, my TikTok. Believe it or not, I've ventured into the world of TikTok. But yeah, that's how you can connect with me and absolutely email me. And that's a big thing I want to put out there for people. If you just need to talk, you don't have to pay. There's no fee for that. You can email me and I will absolutely talk with you and get you through that moment and just get it off your chest. So that's where you can find me.
Thank you for all of that, RJ. And before we go, I can't forget, I got to give a shout out. I should have done this in the beginning, but I didn't.
Yes.
To Chris Mamoni.
Yes.
To Chris, I'm trying to restore my own universal karma because I have mispronounced his name twice on his podcast, my podcast, and another podcast where he has he sent me some really great guest contributors. So, Chris Mamoni, thank you for hooking me up with RJ Fisher. RJ, it was a great conversation. I hope
It was.
I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wish you well, much success in the future with your beautiful family. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.